Welcome to Gold Coast Insider, where we bring you business insights, stories, opportunities and forecasts from movers and shakers across the Gold Coast. I'm your host, Estella Rodiguero. I'm CEO of Regional Development Australia Gold Coast. My guest today is Paul Kahlert. He's the CEO of All Purpose Transport, APT. Paul commenced his transport career as a 19-year-old working for a freight forwarder company at the Expo 88. And a conversation at the Expo 88 with the owner of APT led to a job offer. He helped to set up the new computer system while completing his university degree, and 35 years later, Paul remains at APT. After working his way through the business in various roles, including general manager for 20 years, he was promoted as CEO in July of 2022. Paul specialises in strategic planning, business planning and budget, project management and implementation, workforce development, and now pandemic crisis management. Who of us don't need that? Welcome, Paul. Great to talk to you today.
Thank you, Estella. Yeah, it's great to be here.
Now, I ran into Paul. Well, I didn't run into him physically, but I met Paul at the Workforce Now event, which was focused on looking at the diversity of our workforce and how we can respond to the need for more employees into the workforce. And Paul has a really interesting story to tell. Now, I'd like to start with, in 2015, Paul, you undertook a formal study fellowship, which was awarded by the ISS Institute, where you reported on best practice workforce development within the logistics companies in the US. Now, that must have been a really eye-opener. And did you learn much? And what did you take back from that? Like, were there some really key that you came and you could influence?
Well, the first thing I found, Estella, was that the American workforce is very diverse. They've got quite a very much almost a state-based type relationship with their workers. And when I went over to, for example, I started over in New York, and then I worked my way down south. And each state as I went through, I found that they actually had different ways of dealing with their workforce challenges. One of the main things that I did find, though, was the connection to the military was very, very strong. So what they were finding was to create a pipeline for their military after they left their service to actually come through and join workforce and to join the actual workforce. So what I found in there was that the training and development of their workers was done very well in the military. And then a lot of the companies, in particular logistics companies, were saying, hey, I'd love to come and grab the workers from the military because of their ability to follow procedures and processes.
Great. God, that's actually a really good system, isn't it? Like it's a continuity of workers. And it's giving back as well. It's really good.
Well, really over there, the thing that struck me as I went around was that they've got a massive skill shortage in truck drivers. So I think at the time there was 45,000 vacancies just in truck drivers alone. And you saw on the back of trucks, they were offering $6,000 to start driving, and they were offering, all the benefits are on the back of the trucks. You get to work from home, start and finish from home, and they get you to the trips back home as well, all as part of the actual trying to attract and retain their workforce.
What's our workforce like now? Like, do we have what's happening in that trucking and that transport world now, as far as staff's concerned and drivers, I guess?
It's probably the biggest challenge we've got as an industry is we've got an aging workforce, and it's rapidly aging. And so I think the average age of our truck drivers is around the 48 years of age now, and that is actually getting worse year by year. So trying to attract and retain young people to come through the system because transport's seen as a second career choice. So a lot of our workers go out there, they take on a trade, they fail in the trade, and then they become into our industry. So our biggest challenge is to try to get people out of that school-based type program as well.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit more about that skill-based program, because you've got a really good you've made some really good school connections, and you're trying to connect them with the industry to look at this industry as a viable profession moving forward for these school kids. So how have you enacted that? Like how is APT doing that?
Well, one of the things that we have is a need at night time. We've got line haul services come in from Melbourne, which require freight to be sorted. So we've created what we'd like to think is our McDonald's after school program for the kids, where they come in there, they actually get to work in our cross dock operations doing freight sorting, which is it's a labor intensive task, but it actually gives them exposure to our industry. But it gets them 3 or 4 hours worth of work every afternoon after school. So not dissimilar to them going to McDonald's and flipping burgers. We've got them coming into our facility working for us. But the result of that is we want them to, obviously, when they finish school, and say, actually, I saw a forklift operator, or I saw one of the operations people, I'd like to understand how to allocate to vehicles, and you actually create a career path from them as they leave school. Because again, if we can get them when they're 17, 18 years old, it's much better than when we get them at 26 and 27 years old. So we want to get the youth coming through our business. And
you're currently working with 3 schools, is that correct?
That's correct. So down here in Logan, we've connected with Marsden and Hillcrest and with Woodridge State High to go through and actually we actually hold programs where we bring the kids through and we walk them through our operations. And what we get to do is, from a diversity point of view, is actually show, particularly for women, that our operations teams aren't the traditional truckie type, blokey type environment. They're actually we've got quite a number of women who actually work in our business now, and that the skills aren't, the loading of the trucks is only and the driving of the trucks is only a very small part of the actual task. A lot of the preparation and a lot of the planning is all done in the background in a normal office environment, basically using just computers. So the computer skills are very critical for our business as well.
And I do want to get into that a little bit further, but first I thought we might do a little intro into APT, because it's a good story. I mean, it started in 1975, isn't it? And it's still a privately owned company.
That's right. So the owners of the business started it from their house down here in Logan in Daisy Hill, and they started that, and then they basically have grown to the business now. We employ roughly 300 drivers and about 120 staff. And what we've now grown into a business now, where when we started we were basically just a small family business. We're now quite a large company, but what has stayed throughout there the whole time is we've kept it to be a family business, and we've got the son and the daughter who work in a finance and an HR role in the actual business as well as part of our leadership team. So we've actually kept that business going from its family roots here in Logan, and actually grown it now into quite a large business.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So you also have a very impressive workforce development program, which is tied to training, and you actually got received recognised as a winner in the Medium Employer of the Year at the 2023 Queensland Training Awards for Southeast Region. Do you want to start us on that journey with you?
Absolutely. So back in 2012, we were struggling to attract and retain workers, and to grow the business and to build the business, we needed to roughly grow our workforce by around about 8% a year. And in order to do that, we wanted to do something different. So we created a program back in 2012 where every worker who works for the company gets a Certificate 3 or high nationally recognised qualification. So effectively, that program started back in 2012, and it's now going, here we are 11 years later, and we still actually have that program going. So the advantage for that is a lot of the people who receive the qualifications actually haven't got any formal qualifications at that point in their lives. So we've got drivers, for example, who've worked, they're 48, 49 years of age, and they actually get their first formally recognised qualification
Mm.
through this program. So for us, it's actually gives us the quality assurance as well, because we have a high quality where an independently verified by the TAFE trainer actually goes out and qualifies those persons' skill sets. And so it's not us doing it internally, it's actually someone having a look at us externally and actually measuring our performance against nationally recognised standards. So for us, that gives us the ability to go out there and actually generate more business, because we give our customers the certainty around the quality of our service, because we've got our workers all fully trained.
And you were the first in Queensland to actually qualify all your employees, weren't you?
That's it. So it was actually 2013. So 1 year after we started the program, we finished where we actually had every single driver and every single staff member in the business had received, and that's that time there, that was around about 350 people had actually received their formally recognised qualifications. So that was a big milestone for the business. Then over the past 10 years, or the subsequent 10 years, we've kept that program going. So right now we've done around about 500 qualifications, because obviously through people, coming and going, we've actually, they've taken the qualification with them into future employment, or in some cases retirement. So for us, it's basically, we've kept this program going because it makes a lot of commercial sense.
But also, so is there a greater retention through this process? I mean, you're always going to lose some people, but what's the retention like on it, Paul? Has it helped?
Interesting. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because from a staffing perspective, it's around about the 65% that we have retention rates. So what you find is obviously people leave through retirement, or they leave through illness or whatever from there. But as a whole, we've actually found that the staff, particularly during that 12-month period it takes to get the qualification, it makes them very sticky in the business as far as retention is concerned. And then from our driver's perspective, we sit around about the 60 to 70% mark on the driver retention as well. Now, that's really important during times like COVID, when obviously our business actually doubled in size during COVID. So it exploded. And so we needed a lot more people to come and work for us. And what you find is that some of the applicants, when they come to apply for the company, actually mention, they say, hey, listen, I saw on social media, or I saw in LinkedIn that you do a nationally recognised qualification. That's part of my reason for wanting to join you.
That's amazing. So that was way back then. You were having trouble, and bring COVID on, and since COVID, the whole the whole dynamics have changed, and it's now crucial for employers, if they want to retain their employees, and they need to adjust their practices. It's like flexible hours, family friendly, the policy on working from home, all those sort of things. So did you have to confront that? You were busier than you ever were through that COVID, and you had that rapid growth. Post-COVID, are you having to change any of the ways you have done practice to engage staff and to keep finding those staff?
I think the big thing that employers have found is that the old style of where the master, I use the word terrible words, but it's master slave, that has very much changed, where it is now very much that an employee selects you rather than you select an employee.
True.
And I think that you need to have a point of difference as an offering for your workforce. And if you don't offer a point of difference, it becomes a monetary consideration, and workers maybe for $1 an hour might go and actually work for another employer, depending on what you can actually offer. So for us, the training and development is one of the advantages of working there. But the other stuff that we do, we've got a lot of internal stuff with like an internal Facebook that we have, which gives us the ability to do recognition to a large workforce. It allows us to go through and communicate to a large workforce as well. But I really feel that as a manager now, looking at what has changed since COVID, is the ability to communicate and engage and hold on to your workers is far more challenging now than it was pre-COVID.
And so 30% of all your workforce is women. And Have you addressed, have you made changes to encourage those women into the workforce? Has that happened since COVID, or was that always a policy? And I think one of the things you mentioned off the top of my head was, women with children that start school and looking at those hours and adjusting schedules to reflect that. Has that been something that's actually really came to its force since COVID, or was that a policy all along?
I think sitting back there, even 20 years ago, we always had that, where what we found was we used our call center as a staging point for people to come in and return to work from women who had gone off and had families, who then decided as their kids got older, they progressively got more and more hours available in their time. So what we found was we were hiring women through our call center to work 4-hour shifts, which were school friendly. And then as their children got older, they actually started to then say, hey, I'm available to work 6 hours, 8 hours. And we then integrated them into our workforce.
Yeah.
At the same time, there was a big shift going on in IT, which made where the traditional fleet routing, where it used to be all done with a two-way radio and the guys calling out over there and allocating work, it became done electronically. So the attention to detail, which traditionally, and I don't want to be sound sexist at all, but women are far more detailed than men. And what we found was we actually brought in more women into our operational area, and hence why 30% of the women now in our operational area are represented, because of the fact that the type of work has changed significantly from the traditional trucky type work to it's more an administrative and more of an IT based type work, where traditionally it was much more chattering over the two-way radio and that sort of stuff and being blokey. That's all gone. One of the things you do notice when you come in our office is the lack of noise. And that was traditionally when I first started, it was a very, very noisy sort of environment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But APT has also fostered a diverse workforce, and this is where when I met with you, that was over that workforce now, and we were looking at the diversity of the workforce, given that we have something like 50,000 women that are not employed that are looking for work. We have 180,000 people with various disabilities, or something that doesn't support them getting into the workforce. Now APT actually has got a really good diverse migrant, refugee, First Nations, and you've adopted some clever, innovative approaches to enhance that into your sector. What are some of those ideas or some of the things you've done to do that? And I also want you to give me the example of that guy that you're telling me about.
Yeah.
Such a good story.
So I guess from the personal background, my background is that my father was a refugee post World War II from Germany, and he came to Australia and was given an opportunity to thrive, and he actually did thrive as a result of being given the opportunity. So I guess back there, and a bit of my DNA is sitting there, where I've always taken the approach of best people, best business, rather than looking for quotas and looking for trying to identify, I guess the genders type scenario. So as a result of that, when I started with the business back 30 odd years ago, we were still seeing the Vietnamese coming through from a refugee background post the Vietnam War. And then I noticed, then you see the Sudanese come through, and then the Iraqis came through, and then the Afghans came through. And you started to see the work that I guess the people coming through who are taking on labouring type work in our working with our drivers and helping as an offsider. You started to see that happen there. So what we then thought was, why aren't we actually tapping into that market and actually going out there and engaging with those communities and actually getting ourselves involved and then bringing those workers through? So we've got a couple of great stories where one guy in particular, an Afghan refugee, who basically his family was still over in Afghanistan. He was actually collecting trolleys for IKEA. He actually went up and approached one of our drivers who was delivering for IKEA and said, how do I become an IKEA driver? We've taken him on board, and as a result of that, now here we are 4 years later. He's brought his family over from Afghanistan. He's now fully integrated into our business, and he rates as one of our highest drivers on our Net Promoter Score. So he's a cracking story of someone who was given that opportunity, like my father was given as a refugee, to come through and make a difference. So I think for us, what then happens is Hussein has now engaged with his community and brought in other drivers who are in similar situations. So it's almost like a recommendation. So our Net Promoter Score, which measures our drivers' performance from a customer's perspective, our top 10 drivers would all have very, very foreign names. And it's not Bob Smith and Jane Doe and all that. They're actually Hussein and Haitham and different names, which are all cracking stories of people who have actually done really, really well, coming from a very, very, I guess, diverse background.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great story. So I'm going to move a little bit on now, because, that whole carbon footprint story now is really, really pertinent. And I do know that transport makes up more than 19% of Australia's carbon emissions annually. And with stronger emissions targets in place, large retailers have to set their own targets, and driving delivery partners to shift their focus on how they're going to respond to this. And I guess you're also looking at, with the Olympic Games being carbon neutral and net positive, it really does make it a story for the transport, because you guys, I think how many deliveries do you have a week or something? It's like massive.
So we're doing roughly about 4,000 new furniture deliveries every week. So that's across a number of customers, including IKEA, Fantastic, King Living, Sealy. So we're out there in actually in residential areas, delivering with big diesel trucks pumping out lots and lots of CO2. But I think more importantly, it's not the CO2 that's harmful to our families, it's the diesel particulates. So if you look at it from an employee's or from an employer's perspective, these areas are where our families live, and we're a family business. So we're more around, we've introduced 10 electric vehicles now that we have running around Southeast Queensland, undertaking deliveries for the retailers. And last month, for example, those trucks took 30 tons of CO2 out of the atmosphere. So we reduced our carbon footprint by around 30 tons. But more importantly, we reduced the diesel particulate, which causes asthma and causes illnesses in children. We've actually reduced that the amount of diesel that we're pumping into neighbourhoods as well. So by the end of the year, we should have 14 trucks on. And then by the end of 2025, we'll have 38 trucks on. Wow. So we've sort of put ourselves on that journey now for that. And it generated a lot of skepticism, I guess. Initially, when you looked at it, everyone goes, "Oh, but it runs off a coal-fired power station, and you're not really reducing that." So we took a different view, and we've added 100 kilowatts to the roof of our warehouse, and we're adding another 100 kilowatts later on. So the actual electricity that we're generating off the roof of our building is being used to offset against the trucks that we're charging now. So we've taken more of a holistic view on our zero emissions, rather than saying, listen, just buy the electric trucks and we'll go from there. We're taking a view of saying, let's get rid of some of the CO2. But more importantly, we want to show that it's actually possible to do and reduce it from there. So right now, we're doing roughly 30% of our deliveries that we undertake are now done on a zero-emission vehicle.
Wow. And it's still commercially viable. I mean, is it a cheaper alternative or not?
Over the long term, so the OPEX or the CAPEX is a lot higher. So the vehicles cost more to buy, but over a 5-year period, they're actually cheaper to run. So from an operating point of view, once you've paid the initial cost of the vehicles, much cheaper to run, because there's no gearbox, there's no engine. So your maintenance is a lot lower. Your tyre wear is a lot lower because there's no gears on the vehicle. So as a result, and your brakes are a lot less wearing because the vehicles regen their braking. So really for us, it's cheaper for us to run the vehicles, and it costs us nothing because we're running it off the roof of the or charging off off the roof of the building. So that's cheaper, but just getting the initial shock, they're roughly double the price of a normal truck. So you've got to come up with the capex at the start rather than and that's obviously a challenge. So for us, we're now, as I said, we're going down and getting another 4 vehicles later this year, and the speed of the change will come on quite quickly. I think if you look around now and you see how many Teslas you can see on the road, it's very clear that electric vehicles are coming. Long distance, they're not viable.
I was going to say, are you limited? Yeah, I was wondering about the limitation of recharging. So, what sort of lifespan are you getting out of that? So for your more localized delivery, you use these trucks, but long distances, you couldn't.
Yep. So we run out of Logan. We run our fleet out of there because we've got all our charging infrastructure here at our depot. But we can get down sort of halfway down the Gold Coast, down to sort of Burleigh before we have to charge. And you're starting to see service stations cropping up, but the challenge we got with that is that you don't always have a charger available when you come in, and a lot of the chargers are set up for cars, not set up for trucks, so they obviously take up a lot more space. So we're getting roughly around that 180 to 190 kilometre range on the vehicles, and then we're bringing them back. But as the external infrastructure, charging infrastructure goes in, we'll actually be able to extend that. So we've had one of our trucks go down as far south as Byron using external charging. And then we have them operating, as I said, on the north end of the Gold Coast. We're doing roughly about 17% of the deliveries down there on the actual Gold Coast at the moment from our depot in Logan.
Oh, that's excellent. So what's next for the company, I guess? Like what's your next? Is it to keep growing the EVs, that project EV?
So the EV project 2025, we need to be 100% for the IKEA services that we do. So that's probably our goal that we've got set for 25. As far as the business is concerned, we're now looking at, we currently just do Queensland. We're looking at moving our footprint down further south, and looking at setting up Melbourne, Sydney, and expanding ourselves into a bit more of a national type footprint. So replicating the model that we've currently got and expanding our services further south.
And if somebody's listening to this and they're saying, wow, this is an industry that I think I want to get into, it's sounding really attractive, plus the package you're offering, particularly if it's a school leaver, can they just contact you guys? I mean, are you always on the lookout for staff, or are you sitting?
100%. Yeah.
100%. Always that might be the answer.
Yeah, 100% we're looking for staff. For us, it's really the best way to contact is through our just reach out through our website and that sort of stuff for us.
Okay, but cool. I'll put that down the bottom of the link in any case for everybody, but yes.
Yeah, probably for us but even like personally, just in the short term, Estella, just give them my email address. Well, and I'm more than happy to sort of, anyone who's interested, help them to step them through from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Paul, you've been 35 years. That's a record. That's unbelievable. What's the next 35 years going to look like for you?
So really, it's the transition now from a first generation company into a second generation company. So my role will be to make that transition over. So bringing the 2 children who currently work in the company, I shouldn't say children, they're adults, the 2 adults who work in the company, but the 2 family members in the company, bring them over to a second generation business, and obviously then to set us up into this bit more of a national footprint as well. So that's pretty much what I see for the next 5 to 10 years is where we want to be.
Yeah. I'm going to backtrack a little bit, because when you're talking about that training, the training modules you put everyone through, or put most people through, does that have an impact on their work, on the amount of hours they're working, or is that included as a package when they come in?
No, that is all done during work time. So their expectation is all of the training and development that we do for any of our staff is done during their working hours. We don't ask people to go out there outside their working hours to do any of that stuff. So what we've found, though, is we've engaged with TAFE Queensland. We've still got the same TAFE trainer from 11 years ago who actually does all of our training. So really, from that point of view, Michael actually understands our idiosyncrasies. He understands our culture. He's been part of the business really for 12 years. So when he comes and delivers the training, it is actually done in the workforce environment. And in a lot of the cases, they go out front in the actual vehicles with the drivers. So particularly the migrant drivers, where English is a second language, that's really important, that they're not being judged in a classroom situation and being judged as they don't understand. They're getting very much that one-on-one type training.
That's incredible. Well, look, congratulations. I think this APT is an absolute great example of looking outside of the square when you're looking at the workforce, but also giving back. I mean, I think that there's a whole story about giving back to your employees, and if you strengthen their idea, if you strengthen their learning, the company can only benefit, can't it? I mean, through learning, the benefit comes to APT.
Well, we wouldn't have picked up blue chip customers like IKEA and Fantastic Furniture, just to name a few, and Castrol's another one. You don't pick them up as a small Queensland only company unless you've got a point of difference. So we've made the training and development program as a point of difference, which we can then sell to. So that's how we've actually used that to benefit to us commercially. So it made commercial sense that we actually did the program, and that's becomes, rather than spending lots of money creating a nice marketing campaign, we actually use the workforce development program as our marketing campaign.
Was it hard to set up?
We had this outstanding woman from Department of Transport, and she came in and she helped us do that. So she actually did all the skills assessment. She initially went through and did the 350 interviews and actually did a skills assessment on every single person, and she was absolutely brilliant. She also went out and helped us select TAFE Queensland. So she was amazing. And Louise was, this is another reason we did it 10 years later, was Louise actually unfortunately passed away 2 years ago, but we wanted to make sure that her legacy was remembered, because this program was her baby and she helped us to put it forward. She actually came up with the idea. So I just wanted to make sure that we didn't forget that, because it makes great commercial sense for us, but it also makes great sense that we've got a point of difference for our people, and we're creating better people. And that goes back to the best people, best business that we've always worked on as a value.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, congratulations, and it's been a pleasure to talk to you and hear your story and what you're doing. And look, we'll watch you with close eyes to see what's next, because you are leading in ideas. You are leading, the transport industry in your concept and your ideas. But also, there's some good ideas for any business out there that is looking at, how do we employ, where do we get our staff from, what can we offer the staff? I think the whole lot is a really good example of what is potentially out there for them. So thank you for your time today. I know you're really busy.
No, it's all good. No,
I've got another 35 years in which to do another podcast. I'm fine.
I'm running out of time. That's the problem. I think it's now, I've got, what is it, 5 years to go really, and that's it. So
I don't know. I think you're going to be a man with a lot of ideas to come yet. Don't worry. Thanks for listening today. For a complete list of podcast episodes and transcripts, go to rdagoldcoast.org.au/podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter.